Commander Zekthara stared at the holographic display with growing disbelief. The simulation chamber's neural feedback indicators were spiking into critical ranges across 12 different species biometrics. The Vorthan representative had already been sedated after suffering what their physicians called existential collapse syndrome. The crystalline Nixari delegate had literally shattered 3 of their light-focusing organs. Even the notoriously resilient Krogans were showing stress, fractures in their chitinous exoskeletons, and yet in the center of it all, the human sat calmly in his neural interface chair, vital signs steady as bedrock. "This is impossible," muttered Dr. Yilmoth, the Galactic Training Consortium's chief psychologist. Her 6 eyes were focused, on different readouts, each one telling the same impossible story. Subject 7 Alpha has been running the Omega Protocol for 14 consecutive hours. The previous record was held by a Thraken war saint at 43 minutes before neural cascade failure. The Omega Protocol wasn't just a training simulation. It was psychological warfare distilled into pure digital nightmare. Designed by the galaxy's most sadistic military minds, it threw every conceivable horror at a candidate's psyche. Betrayal by loved ones, the collapse of civilization, personal failure on cosmic scales, and deaths so realistic that most species couldn't distinguish them from reality. It was meant to forge the galaxy's elite special forces, but in practice, it had broken more minds than it had strengthened. "The humans' cortisol levels aren't even elevated," observed Medical Officer Trendo, his translator struggling with the clicking sounds of his native language. If anything, his dopamine production has increased by 12%. Through the observation window, they watched Marcus Chen methodically work through another scenario. In the simulation, he was watching Earth burn while alien invaders tortured his family. According to the readouts, he was experiencing every sensation with full neural integration. The pain, the grief, the desperation. It should have been overwhelming. Instead, Marcus paused the simulation. "Hey, control room." His voice came through the intercom with casual friendliness. "This is pretty good, but I think there's a bug in the emotional processing subroutines. The alien torturers keep using the same interrogation techniques. Real. Interrogators would adapt their methods based on subject responses. Also, the physics engine has some inconsistencies. The gravitational effects on the orbital debris don't match the planet's actual mass." Commander Zekthara's mandibles clicked in confusion. He's critiquing the simulation while experiencing maximum psychological trauma? Furthermore, Marcus continued, the family members' dialogue patterns are too consistent with their baseline personalities. Under extreme duress, people often revert to childhood speech patterns or develop temporary aphasia. You might want to randomize those variables for increased realism. Dr. Yilmoth's tentacles writhed with agitation. "He's treating it like a video game. How is this possible?" "Excuse me," Marcus's voice interrupted their discussion. "Are there any harder difficulty settings? I think I'm starting to see the patterns in the trauma scenarios. Oh, and maybe you could add some time pressure? Having infinite time to make decisions kind of breaks the immersion." The observation room fell silent. In the corner, the Andromedan delegate was still twitching from his encounter with the simulation's moderate difficulty setting, a scenario involving the heat death of the universe that had lasted all of 4 minutes before his nervous system shut down in self-defense. "Sir," Technician Ralphin whispered to Commander Zekthara, "the human's neural patterns are unlike anything in our databases. When the simulation triggers fear responses, his brain simultaneously activates problem-solving centers. When it induces despair, his creativity networks spike. It's as if his species treats existential horror as entertainment." Marcus's voice came through again. "Oh, one more thing. Could you enable friendly fire? I noticed my simulated allies can't be hurt by my actions, which seems unrealistic for combat scenarios. Half the stress of real warfare is worrying about collateral damage." Commander Zekthara activated his communication panel with trembling claws. "Subject 7 Alpha, this is Control. Are you enjoying the simulation?" "Well, enjoying is a strong word," Marcus replied thoughtfully. "It's definitely Engaging. Reminds me of some of the survival horror games we had back on Earth. Though those were usually scarier, they didn't have to worry about physiological realism, so they could really mess with your head. This is more like an educational experience, with good graphics. Educational? Dr. Yilmoth's voice cracked. You just watched your species go extinct. Yeah, and I learned 17 different ways it could happen, plus optimal resource allocation strategies for 12 of those scenarios. Very informative. Though I have to ask, is there a sandbox mode where I can test different response strategies? And maybe co-op multiplayer? Some of these scenarios would be more interesting with a team. The Nexari military advisor, who had been silent since witnessing his homeworld's destruction in the simulation, finally spoke through his translator with a voice like breaking glass. What are humans? Marcus's biometrics remained steady as he answered. We're the species that tells scary stories around campfires for fun. We voluntarily watch horror movies. We create games where the objective is to survive impossible situations. We've been training for your worst-case scenario since we learned to imagine. He paused, and for the first time there was something almost like sympathy in his tone. Look, I get that this is supposed to be traumatic, and if it happened in real life, it would be. But the thing about humans is, we've already imagined every possible way things could go wrong. We tell ourselves these stories constantly. It's not that we don't feel fear. It's that fear is so familiar to us that we've learned to dance with it. Commander Zekthara looked around the observation room at the traumatized representatives of a dozen civilizations. Then he made a decision that would reshape galactic military training forever. Subject 7 Alpha, he said slowly. How would you like to help us design a new simulation? Marcus's vital signs finally showed a spike of excitement. Now you're talking. I've got some ideas that would make your current program look like a children's bedtime story. In the silence that followed, Dr. Yilmoth realized that perhaps the galaxy's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating human resilience. Perhaps it was asking humans to help improve their psychological warfare capabilities. The screams from the beta test 3 weeks later were heard across 7 star systems.